75 jaar geleden kwam er een eind aan de Tweede Wereldoorlog. Terwijl de wereld dit viert, is de gevolg van dit oorlog vandaag de dag nog te zien in Afrika. En niet op een gewenste manier. Een voorbeeld hiervan is het land Cameroen, ofwel de twee Cameroens. Een land dat een verplicht VN-gebied was. Ons programma gaat over wat er vandaag in Cameroen plaatsvindt. Ik geef een voorbeeld. Op 14 februari van deze jaar, terwijl de wereld liefde vierde, werden meer dan 30 mensen, waaronder veel kinderen onder 12 jaar, op een zeer gruwelijke manier vermoord. Sommigen werden doodgeschoten, sommigen leven verbrand, sommigen neergeschoten. Overlevenden zeiden dat het werd door het leger van het land gedaan. Dit is precies wat is er in Rwanda gebeurd. En daarom noemen veel mensen dit een genocide. Bij ons vandaag, om dit te bespreken, hebben we Reverend Vader Paul via Skype uit Groningen. Akum Erk, ook via Skype uit Groningen. En professor Carlston Anyangwe, ook via Skype, maar uit Afrika. Met mij in de studio hebben wij Nelson en Patrick. Professor Carlston, I was speaking a bit in Dutch. And I just explained to the viewers that the situation since the Second World War, while people are celebrating the impact of the end of that war is still being seen in Africa at the moment. And Cameroon is an example. And I explained also that what is happening in Cameroon is really unfortunate because recently, as recent as the 14th of February, over 30 people were killed and about 14 children, most of them were children, and in a most horrendous manner. Some of them were hacked, some of them were burnt alive, some of them were shot, and including, actually I didn't say that in Dutch, including pregnant women and babies. And so many people in the Netherlands do not know that this is happening. And the question that we are asking now, and that I'm going to ask our panelists, is what is the situation now in Cameroon? What is the general situation? Why is this happening? And I'll ask you that first, Professor. What is the situation now in Cameroon, as far as you know?
Well, thank you very much, Dutch viewers. It's my pleasure to be on this program. And it's my pleasure to know the keen interest which the Dutch has demonstrated by suffering people. The situation now that's on the ground in the former British Southern Cameroons, the indigenous name of which is Ambazonia. The situation now is we are at war with the neighboring country of French Cameroon. How did this situation come about? After the Second World War, what was then known as the the mandated territory of the Southern Cameroon became the trust territory of the Southern Cameroon under the administration of Great Britain. This territory is well defined by international law, and it has borders which are also defined by international law. Borders which were signed, the treaties concluded between Great Britain and France. Now, after the Second World War, by the late 50s, the United Nations organization, which was set up and was created after the Second World War, to bring about peace and security in the world, decided that colonialism was a contributory factor to the unrest in the world. And so it became an article of faith of the United Nations that all colonial territories must be decolonized. And that is why, as from the middle 50s onwards, country after country, colonial countries, started gaining their independence. And in Africa, one of those countries that gained independence in the 50s was Ghana in 1957. And that process had to carry on. And by 1960, a number of African countries acceded to independence. In that 1960, the United Nations adopted a binding declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and territories. And that binding declaration made it mandatory to all colonial powers that still retained colonies to grant those colonies independence without any excuse whatsoever. They were supposed to grant independence immediately. In the case of the British Southern Cameroons, for reasons which we do not understand, the United Nations and Great Britain decided to impose an unacceptable plebiscite on the people rather than grant them independence. And this was in February 1961. Mark you, the binding declaration on the grant of independence was in December 1960. And one would have expected that that binding declaration should have bound the United Nations and also Great Britain. That did not happen. So that plebiscite, which was imposed on the people of the Southern Cameroons, simply said, do you want to become independent by joining Nigeria? Or do you want to become independent by joining French Cameroon? The word joining was never defined either by the United Nations or Britain itself. But by agreement between, by an understanding between French Cameroon and British Southern Cameroon, it was agreed that independence meant forming a federal political association. And in April, on the 21st of April 1961, the United Nations General Assembly, by Resolution 1608, endorsed the independence of the Southern Cameroons and set aside 1st October as the effective date of the independence of the Southern Cameroons. It mandated that the two countries, together with Britain, were to meet and work out the modalities by which that understanding of an association, the form of federation, was to take place. This did not happen. On the 30th of September, Great Britain simply transferred the British Southern Cameroon to French Cameroon as successor colonialist. And on the 1st of October, French Cameroon moved in its troops, moved in its administrators into the Southern Cameroons, and immediately occupied the territory. And one of the things they did was to commit a massacre at Ebubu, where you had dozens of people were killed or massacred. That signaled the kind of colonial rule that French Cameroon was determined to impose on our people. And in 1962, there began to be protests already against this colonial repression and colonialism. The forms of repression were one, torture. Anybody who tried to oppose, stand up against that colonial imposition were tortured. We have examples of many people who were simply abducted, disappeared, or tortured in dungeons. French Cameroon set up all over the territory torture chambers that were known as BMM. These were torture chambers. French Cameroon also adopted a policy of harassing and terrorizing the people by what was known in those days as Calais, that is cordon and search operations. That did not end it. People were systematically killed if they dared to oppose. People were arbitrarily arrested and imprisoned. And French Cameroon used its military tribunal as an instrument of repression. Since then, the opposition to colonial rule, French Cameroon colonial rule, in what we call Ambazonia locally, simply increased. And in 1972, matters were made worse when French Cameroon formally annexed Ambazonia, split up, fractured Ambazonia into two of its provinces, and gave them some geographical name called Northwest or Southwest. But that did not stop the protest and intensification of the opposition to this intensified and brutal colonial rule that was instituted in Ambazonia. And from 1972 to today, that process of intimidating, terrorizing the people simply continued. But the people never gave up. At first, we thought we could get them to reason by preaching the gospel, the force of argument. That's what we said. We can use our argument and get them to see reason. And so everybody was talking, okay, peace. They have done all of this to us, and they continue to maltreat us, the repression, but let's talk peace and get them eventually to see reason. This did not happen. Little did we know that their agenda was precisely to assimilate the people of Ambazonia, take over the territory because of its resources, oil, gas, mineral, natural resources, and then seize the territory which they can then occupy as their own. You know that the French Cameroon president recently made that confession. They had been trying all along to assimilate us. Of course, the word assimilation, which he used, was simply a fine term, another term for colonization and colonial oppression. So things came to a head in 2016. Because remember, as I said, this has been a continuous process. The people of Ambazonia have not known any peace ever since they were colonized by French Cameroon. It has been one chapter of atrocities to another, one chapter of suffering to another. Ambazonia simply moved backwards in terms of development. The only thing that were achieved, led by the British by our own people, for those years which we administer ourselves, those were simply destroyed systematically. And by 2014, they believed they had achieved their purpose, and all that was left were two areas which were still standing out. The area of law and law administration, and the area of education. They then decided that they must take these two areas head on. And overnight, they decided to post their French-speaking teachers and their French system and impose on us their legal system, and there are judges who understand nothing about the common law system, not to talk of even English, and impose on us. That is the immediate cause of what we see today. And at that point, the people said they had enough. Because when they came out to demonstrate, a coalition of lawyers, of teachers, and of civil society. But even at that point, in 2016, they were still in the mode of civil protest. But these civil protests were met by violent repression. Lawyers were beaten in the streets, their wigs were torn off, their gowns were torn off, girls were raped in their dormitories and in their hostels where they are, rubbed in mud, and a number of them were shot and killed. It came at that point, it appeared by 2017, that frankly, there was no way these people know anything about peace. Because while the leaders of those civil society organizations and lawyers and so on were still talking about peaceful change, peaceful demonstrations and so on, French Cameroon government was plotting how to eliminate them, how to arrest them. And when they started arresting a few, some of them. The others escaped to Nigeria as a way of avoiding assassination, which intelligence showed they had made up their mind to do. At that point, it became very, very evident to everyone that there was no way in which French Cameroon was going to talk peace, even though our people continued to preach peace and peace.
Professor, is that what brought to the point that we're seeing situations of genocide now? All of this gathered to that point. Is it this? So basically, what you're saying is it's just did not start in 2016. It's a process that has moved up till this point.
Yeah. It has been a continuum. The problem, the other thing is that previous act of mass killings, massacres, pogroms, didn't simply catch the world's attention. They didn't. And because also we still believed that in spite of all these killings that started in 1961 with the Ebubu massacre onwards, that perhaps at last these French Cameroon people will see reason and change their ways. We can then try to work out a kind of modus vivendi with them. But as the days went by, as the years went by, it became apparent that these people were not bent. They were bent on actually exterminating the people of Ambazonia and seizing their territory.
Professor,
the point I want to simply make is,
okay.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Is that, as you said, this is a continuum.
Okay.
And this continuum came to a head in 2016, 2017 in particular. And when Apple had enough, they decided to show that, look, we're not going to take all this kind of repression and killings anymore. And they demonstrated. And they took the view, and rightly, I would think so, that the safety of the people of Ambazonia can only be safeguarded within their own territory itself as a sovereign independent state. And they came out to demonstrate that, and they showed that carrying peace plans. But even in the face of these peace plans that we carry, the massacre that took place, sometimes they're using helicopter gunship more than these people. You would have imagined that if in any civilized country, when a situation like that, you simply draft in a civil police to try to bring law and order if they thought that was the case.
Professor.
But of course, French Cameroon has no civil police.
Professor, actually, this is, I'll come back to you on this because the fact that what you just said, this last part, gunships used on people, this massacre, I'll come back to you because I'm really interested in how has the international community responded to this, because we see all kinds of statements, all kinds of papers, all kinds of agreements made by statesmen that never again, this cannot happen, that cannot happen. But from what you're saying, clearly this is happening. This history was being told in English, or this process, how we've come to this point that we are seeing what's happening in the Cameroons now. Father Paul, wat is de oorzaak van de situatie nu in Cameroen?
Zeg ik het in het Nederlands of in het Engels?
In het Nederlands, alsjeblieft.
In het Nederlands. Ja. Nou, ik heb alles begrepen wat de professor vertelde. Maar ik heb een paar steunpunten die mij geholpen hebben om de hele situatie in Cameroen, in Engels sprekend Cameroen, Brits Cameroen, om te begrijpen. En het eerste is dit. Wat mij verbaasd heeft en eigenlijk ook gefrustreerd heeft, is dat Engels Cameroen, Brits Cameroen, 7 jaar lang een onafhankelijk land is geweest. Van 1955, 54 tot 61. Dat zijn 7 jaar waarin Brits Cameroen onafhankelijk was. Met 2 prime ministers gekozen door de mensen. En eigenlijk moet ik het Verenigd Koninkrijk feliciteren dat zij Brits Cameroen zo ver gebracht hebben dat zij een volledige, onafhankelijke, democratische staat is geworden. Dus dat voor mij heeft me verbaasd. En het wordt in commentaren in Nederlandse kranten, wordt daar niks over gezegd. Dan het tweede, een ander punt wat mij geholpen heeft om de situatie te snappen in de laatste 20 jaar, want ik heb het gevolgd 20 jaar lang alsof het mijn eigen land is. Dat is, er is een resolutie 1608 XV. Dat is een resolutie die stelt Frans Cameroen en Brits Cameroen rondom de tafel zouden moeten gaan zitten om te bespreken hoe de relatie tussen de twee helpt om de situatie duidelijk te maken. En die zouden dus om de tafel moeten zitten en die twee zouden een verhaal op moeten zetten waarin recht wordt gedaan op de gelijkheid van Engels Cameroen en Frans Cameroen. En nu komt het punt. Er werd gezegd dat die twee landen zouden dan, de twee landen zouden dan op papier moeten zetten hoe de verhouding zou moeten zijn. En die verhouding zou dan voorgelegd moeten worden aan de United Nations. En de United Nations zou daar goedkeuring aan geven. En volgens mij is dat de central point, dat op het ogenblik niet bij columnwriters bekend is. Want wat er gebeurt er, o jee, die conferentie tussen die twee gelijkwaardige landen, met gelijkwaardige kansen, die conferentie is nooit gehouden. En de United Nations heeft daar niet aan meegeholpen om die conferentie wel te laten plaatsvinden. Het Verenigd Koninkrijk heeft niet erop gestaan dat deze conferentie ook uitgewerkt zou worden. En van die onzekerheid waar het Verenigd Koninkrijk en de Verenigde Naties niks hebben gedaan, heeft het Franse gedeelte misbruik gemaakt van een soort vacuüm en daarmee is de hele ellende begonnen. En daarom vind ik dat we moeten terug naar de geschiedenis, eerst die 7 jaar. Want het is niet voor niks dat de oppositie nou zegt restauratie van de democratie. Restoration of democracy. En die restoration of democracy, daar heeft dus Engels sprekend Cameroen recht op. Zijn daar vragen over?
Het is belangrijk dat de Nederlanders zich ook gestemd.
Oh, en er zijn 63 landen die hebben gestemd en die hebben allemaal gezegd, wij willen een onafhankelijk Engels Cameroen. En van die 63 is Nederland 1 land geweest. En ik ben Nederlander. En wat mij enigszins verheugt is, dat de minister van Buitenlandse Zaken, dat is Stef Blok, en samen met een Belgische minister, die hebben nu de fact-finding mission van de United Nations, die fact-finding missions, die hebben ze gesupport. En waarom weet Stef Blok dat? Omdat ik heb vanuit Nederland, Hans van Balen is een Europese vertegenwoordiger van Nederland. Die Hans van Balen is heel close geweest. En misschien nog wel met Ngala voor. En dus ik hoop nu dat Stef Blok, die dus gesouffleerd wordt misschien wel door Hans van Balen, dat hij doorzet en dat hij zegt, ja, die fact-finding mission, die moet komen. En volgens mij is dat zou een grote oplossing zijn voor het probleem.
Bedankt, Father Paul. This is a very important topic because it has to do with a situation that's happening right now in one part of the world that many people do not know. We zitten nu in een wereld waar dingen gebeuren overal. En in de land Cameroen gebeurt iets heel erg vreemd. En de meeste mensen weten er niks van. We've heard what's going on in Cameroon. We've heard the professor speak about the history. We've heard Father Paul talk about the history. And I'm going to first start with you, Nelson. The situation as it is now in that part of the world, what is that situation and what do you think can be done?
Yeah, to begin with, I remember that the United Nations Security Council met last December. You remember what they said was that something was going on badly and that an urgent action was required. Mm-hmm. And when they said it was urgent, which means that there was some kind of a high humanitarian crisis going on. Mm-hmm. People are being traumatized. They are living in fear. People are dying. Mm-hmm. The villages are being burned. Mm-hmm. So, and people were in dire need of help. I can already say we have, there are more than 60,000 refugees already out of the country. Talking about IDPs, so it's going very, very bad. And so what they really asked was that there needs to be a humanitarian corridor, okay, so that the international community can come in and at least relieve the people. And they were also saying that there should be some kind of negotiations, mm-hmm, to help talk to address the root causes and solve the problem. Right. So, but in recent times, the situation worsened. So I think that the term urgent is already an understatement. Yeah.
We have with us also Eric Akum from Groningen. Eric, you've heard Nelson just given a kind of quick roundup of what the situation is, and you've also heard Professor Carlson, you've heard Father Paul, and do you have any references what's the international world saying? Where can we get references of what's happening in Cameroon now? Do you have any or any directives you can give us? Because it's strange that this is going on and it's not many people seem to know. So what are the things that can show that the world is, or that really people are conscious of what's really going on, or the media?
Well, thank you very much, Barbara, for this opportunity. Yes, I think what Nelson has said is correct. The humanitarian situation there is so dire that we do not need to waste any more time, because what the people in Southern Cameroons and Bazonia are already facing is a genocide. There's, in fact, we know of the Genocide Watch. If you listen to the director of Genocide Watch, he has already declared it as a genocide. If you listen to a parliamentarian in France, they are already qualifying it as sliding into genocide, even though they don't want to call it genocide already. And if you actually want to see the evil of mankind, the atrocities that La République du Cameroun has committed in Ambazonia, you just go and Google www.ambazoniagenocidelibrary.com.
Ambazonia Genocide Library. AmbazoniaGenocideLibrary.com. Okay.
If you want to go to that site, courageous enough, because you may collapse. The kind of graphic images that are there committed by the regime of French Cameroon is something that we did not expect will happen in the 21st century. And if the world is not standing up to this, and then the slogan "never again" is just another empty word, just like we've been hearing over and over. And the Canadians, there's a University of Toronto, I think, in Canada, they've also opened up a kind of documentation center to document evidence of genocide. So we hope that they are actually documenting enough, because our people are also doing their best to actually document them. And even...
What about the media?
Pardon?
What about the media?
Well, the media, just like... Yeah, from the point of view of many people, the mainstream media, we have had Al Jazeera with reporting it, even though not in depth. We have had BBC, especially during the recent Gabo massacre that took place on which you just mentioned on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. I mean, the media is only reporting those few, but what we know is that every single day people are being slaughtered. Just yesterday, up 20 people were killed in Ibawang Kitungo, a small outskirt town of Bamenda. So these are daily occurrences, and the world must sit up now to make sure that
20 people killed by whom? Did they identify?
By the Cameroon military.
Oh.
By the Cameroon military.
Oh.
And among those were 7 children. Again. 7 children.
Oh.
Yes. Again, yesterday. So this, I mean, you see, you are even surprised about it because, and that's why I'm saying every day there are a lot of massacres that we don't even know about. That's why until a fact-finding mission, an independent fact-finding mission is sent down there to go and actually investigate this thing, we will never know the exact number of our people that have been killed.
Wow, this is really, really heavy, and I really wanted to know, you know, who else knows this? So really, we have a number of people, a number of institutions, a number of media houses involved and talking about this situation. Before coming here, I did some readings and looked at a number of things. And Jerry Rawlings, the ex-president of Ghana, is one of the most vocal voices of what's happening in that part of the world. And he is really, really angry about the fact that the world seems to be quiet, people are dying, and nothing is being done. That is your ex-president, and I know for you also this situation is new because it's not being reported that much. How do you feel, you know, as a Ghanaian, to see your own president standing up for other Africans? Do you think it's something that more Africans should do, or do we need to learn more about what's happening around us? What's your take on your ex-president doing this?
Thank you for giving me a chance to express myself. Well, what I can say is it is very good for the initiative what the ex-president Rawlings has said. And I'm expecting all nations, especially Africa as a whole, all the leaders should intervene because they shouldn't let it be like this. No, because as the first speaker said, even Ghana was the first country which got independence in Africa. And as a whole, if you compare even Singapore, Malaysia, at this moment, Ghana, we are far back, you know. So in this situation, what is ECOWAS doing? They too should intervene. Otherwise, I don't know, as a black people, I don't know where we are heading to, you know. Even this situation, within short time, we heard that if you go to Nigeria, this Boko Haram, people were killing a lot of people. And the president was sitting there doing nothing. In this case, as a people or as a nation, what are we doing? And also, as we are hearing this moment, most of our people doesn't know. Even we, the diasporas, we should also unite. With this situation, we can also do demonstration, printing cards, march to the president, plead for the petition, so that maybe those people too can hear what is happening outside our nation, Africa. You know, last year I traveled with one brother, a friend of mine. He come from Cameroon. He let me know that all this thing is happening in Cameroon. The man has stayed here over 25 years. He has built all his resources in Cameroon. Yeah. But at this situation, he can't go back to Cameroon. And now he's finding a place to build a house in Ghana. And I asked him, Mister, why you want to do another thing? He said, my brother, if I go to Cameroon at this moment, they will kill me. I said, for what? You know, there are some certain things happening in Africa we don't know. So in this case, we, the diasporas, we can unite. Let the let our voice heard so that people will know what is happening in Africa.
That is really powerful, that even people from different countries in diaspora can raise their voices against what's happening. I want to ask Professor Carlson this question, because Professor, you've really mapped out and shown us what was happening in what led to where things are now in the Cameroons. So please, can you give us a sense of how the international world is, what's happening in the international world?
Thank you very much. I'll take on a number of issues. That is one of them, which I was hoping to take. The first thing, I'll just give them very briefly because time is against us. The first thing I want to take on is the whole issue of statistics. I've noticed that in reports, we tend to underplay what is happening and thereby trivializing the situation. I can tell you that we have at least 500,000 refugees. The figures that are often sometimes advanced, 60,000, 100,000, and so on. You're only talking about those who've been registered refugees in Nigeria. There are thousands of them who are in Nigeria who are not registered refugees, especially the men, because it's very demeaning to go and sit in the camps day in, day out. And that is not the only place we have refugees. They're scattered over in many other countries. IDPs, there are at least 1 million IDPs who have been moved out. If you imagine that 400 villages have been razed to the ground, and you take a count of how many people are in those villages, it will tell you how many IDPs have escaped. And they're hiding in caves, they're hiding in the forest, drinking impure water, living under conditions which you and I will never think and dream of living. That is a human disaster waiting to come after all of this thing is over. We have 20,000 killed. People quote a low figure, some say 1,000, some say 2,000. That is really, really trivializing the situation. And then we have with the authority of a Norwegian who went down there and an expert in this thing. And he warned the UN that there are 6 million Ambazonians at risk of a humanitarian disaster. Those are the statistics that we have. The second point I want to make is that what we're experiencing is what I call black-on-black colonization. And this is a new situation that's arisen on the African continent, and which the world does not tend to see because it's black people colonizing other black people. If it was white people colonizing other white people, would have been shouting on a rooftop. The people don't see this, and therefore it's kind of concealed. The other distinction I want to make is that there's a whole world of difference between Ambazonia territory and the French Cameroon territory of Cameroon. The boundaries are well demarcated. They are very clear. At no time in history has what was known as British Southern Cameroon and Ambazonia been a part of French Cameroon. No time. Before French Cameroon independence, after French Cameroon independence, and it shall never be. The territory of the people of Ambazonia belongs to the people of Ambazonia.
Professor.
Sovereign title to that territory vests the people of Ambazonia. It does not vest in any other people. French Cameroon has no sovereign title.
And
over
what
the
is being done
Ambazonia.
now, Professor? What are the steps being taken now to change this situation? Is there anything? Is there any progress in trying to change the situation? And just to explain to our viewers, Professor has named, used the word Ambazonia a couple of times. So for those who do not understand, the people of the Southern Cameroon, the former British Southern Cameroon, are calling themselves Ambazonia. So if you hear that name and you don't know what it means, that's what he is referring to. So to be able to give a clear distinction between the situation between the Republic of Cameroon and the people of Southern Cameroons, who now call themselves Ambazonia. So that's what he means by Ambazonia. But Professor, what is being done now to change the situation internationally?
Okay. What is being done now? You mentioned litigation. Litigation against Cameroon did not begin today. We started long ago. And I myself, our lead counsel in a case we brought in the Banjul Court, Human Rights Commission against Cameroon. The others that were brought by other individuals in the Human Rights Committee in Geneva. There are others who tried, even locally in French Cameroon,
coming of it?
We realized, no, nothing has come out of it.
So now, as we start, nothing has come of it.
Right now, nothing. On the angle of litigation, absolutely nothing. However, what we are trying to do now, and we are bent on doing, given the fact that there's genocide, ongoing genocide, given the fact that the crimes against humanity being committed, given the fact that war crimes, we are constituting a dossier.
Professor, let me just ask because the time is very much against us. Nelson, I think Professor mentioned that there's a war going on there, and there's a genocide, and we've heard. I have to bring this up. We've heard people being called terrorists, that there is separatist rebel fighters. And can you tell me more about these fighters that are being called terrorists or rebels or secessionists, separatists?
Thank you so much. From what we understand, it was a peaceful protest that started, when because there was injustice on the land, on the people, and they went out peacefully with peace plans, but then they met with oppression, and so they had to resolve to self-defense. Self-defense is a fundamental right. So when these people start defending themselves, and you know what happens? The enemy needs to give them a bad name in order to hang them. So they call them terrorists. They are not terrorists. They are not terrorists. They're just people who are very conscious of their fundamental rights. They are people who are being marginalized. They are people who are being oppressed. And they stand up to ask what rightfully belongs to them. Then they're being called terrorists.
Why did these people take up arms? And what needs to be done now?
Yeah, we understand that in 2016, when the marginalization had reached its peak, the people couldn't bear it anymore, so we had lawyers and teachers going out to the street to ask for simple reforms. But they were met with oppression from La République du Cameroon, who is actually the colonizer. And so the people were now brutalized and oppressed to an extent which they couldn't bear. And the people now had to resolve to defending themselves. And we all understand that self-defense is a fundamental right. And when they start defending themselves, now they are being called terrorists. But indeed, they are freedom fighters. And as we understand from Professor Carlson and from Father Paul, there is a good history that shows that there are two Cameroons with two sovereignties, and when one tries to impose its right on the other, they have the right to fight back. They are not terrorists. They are freedom fighters.
What needs to be done now?
And what I see that has to be done, like now we understand genocide going on, war crimes, crimes against humanity. We understand there should be a fact-finding mission there conducted by the United Nations or an independent body to find out what is actually going on. And we also understand that the 60th anniversary of decolonization, marking resolution 1514 of the UN, we have to revisit it and see that the decolonization wasn't completely done. Look at it again, because when the United Nations is saying let's go and talk, they have to take responsibility that they made laws and they didn't really respect.
So a fact-finding mission is what's necessary to go and see what's and to try to stop. Patrick, you made a very, very excellent point that all Africans actually we should look out for each other, just like Jerry Rawlings is doing. What would you say from what you've heard? I know this is coming out new to you. What would you think would be a good way forward?
Well, thank you. I think if the ECOWAS can intervene, then maybe he combined with the United Nations, then maybe they send the missionaries. Then they come to the table. They come to table for solution. They come for discussion, because we don't know what they are demanding now. Exactly. That's why the killing is continuing. Yes. But if we can bring them on table, then we ask them their demands. I think we can solve this.
So a fact-finding mission also is really. I will go also to Father Paul and to Eric. I would like to ask each one of you. I will start with Eric. What should be the way forward What should be done right now to stop this situation?
Negotiations, a dialogue and negotiation to negotiate the exit of La République du Cameroon from the territory of Ambazonia. Professor Anyangwe has said it very clearly. A genocide is going on, of course, while we are pursuing the legal means to hold La République accountable. There also has to be dialogue and negotiation for La République to negotiate its way out of the territory.
Okay, so but the negotiation is between two countries or with other countries involved, or just how what?
Well, yeah, negotiation with a third party, a neutral third party must be there to actually broker the negotiation, so that La République, so the territory of Southern Cameroon is once and for all decolonized.
Okay, so for you, it's an issue of negotiation at this point of La République, Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, and a third party.
A third party mediation.
And Father Paul, wat is de beste oplossing? Wat moet gedaan worden nu?
Het enige wat wij hier in Nederland kunnen doen is to create awareness over de situatie in Engels sprekend Cameroen. Bewustmaking door informatie te brengen. Dat kunnen we doen, dat hebben we in de hand. Die informatie kunnen we op papier zetten, die kunnen we naar de Eerste Kamer en de Tweede Kamer en naar alle ministers in Nederland sturen, zodat Nederland weet wat er aan de hand is in Engels sprekend Cameroen. Wij kunnen niet die twee partijen bij elkaar brengen. Dat zijn andere organisaties die dat kunnen doen. Wij kunnen hier alleen maar bewustwording creëren in Nederland.
Okay. So Father Paul says the only way forward from now on is to make the Dutch more aware, more conscious of what's going on, to get into the parliament, to get it just everywhere in the society. Finally, Professor, what do you think needs to be done?
The first thing I would suggest should happen now, as a matter of urgency, tomorrow, humanitarian intervention to arrest the massive humanitarian situation. This is, well, as the name goes, humanitarian. That has got nothing to do with the main substance of the whole thing. Fact-finding, which goes to the issue of accountability. And, of course, the third thing is that, as which my other panelists have correctly mentioned, that of decolonization. In fact, you have to characterize the situation. This is a colonial situation. And all colonial situation require as a remedy decolonization.
Where we are now, here are a number of points I've gotten, what we've come conclusively. First, a fact-finding mission is just necessary. Professor said decolonization, that is just necessary.
Yes.
It's actually maybe the first point.
There's no option.
And then Eric pointed out that negotiation, but negotiation to a separation. That's what Eric is saying. And actually, we just don't have time. I would have liked to go more on that, because I believe that's where the problems are now. Father Paul is saying, get the Dutch public, the world to know. Actually, Father Paul, ik ben met u eens. En ik denk dat het is niet alleen Nederland, maar de hele wereld. This is such an important topic, and I would like to thank everybody here. I would like to thank especially Professor Anyangwe, who had been waiting to become part of this. I want to thank Father Paul. I want to thank Eric Akum. I want to thank Nelson. I want to thank Patrick. And also, of course, I want to thank Eric Muji, who has been behind organizing all of this. But everyone here, all the panelists, they've all come to the one conclusion, that a fact-finding mission needs to be sent. Part of Africa is hurting, part of the world is hurting, and something needs to be done to halt the huge humanitarian crisis taking place right now. Professor Anyangwe gave some frightening numbers. And to hear also that there is still massacre taking place there while the world is silent, as humanitarian intervention is needed now. And please, I'm asking the world, ik vraag iedereen alsjeblieft, het is nodig nu. Mensen leed. Het is onmogelijk wat gebeurt daar nu. All we're asking is, please, whoever needs to do this, there is a need for humanitarian intervention. And that's our last word. We need humanitarian intervention in Cameroon, in the Southern Cameroon, and in what the people there called Ambazonia. We need that help now and a fact-finding mission. Thank you very much.
Them they beat us, them they kill us, I say them they wound us, Southern Cameroons.